Hey guys, I'm learning TFT and I'm sharing my learnings with you so that you can learn and I can learn better as well. I just finished attending day 3 of the Paris Open. It was an amazing experience. And I also want to talk about a deeper lesson that I learned from this experience that really does not actually have to do with TFT. It's not an excuse or recap video, but it's more of a reflection on identity, self worth, and competing in that context. And I think it's something that is really relevant for basically all the competitors that attended the Paris Open, or if you care about success and competition and achievement, I think this will be relevant. So this is going to be a meta mindset video on worth beyond performance. It's a really big idea, that huge takeaway that I got out of it, very emotional experience for me, and I really wanted to share that with all of you, especially because this experience of attending the Paris Open, I got to meet so many people, you know, top players, but also just random people that have been watching my videos, people like you that are watching at home. And it was really a life, I would say this has been a life-changing experience for me, and I'm going to really dive into why and how all of you have played a huge part in that. And I just want to say ahead of time, thank you. After day 1, when I got knocked out, it was super emotional, and I'll give you a lot more context behind it, but I want to talk about why. So earlier last set, I qualified for the Paris Open, so this is kind of the context leading up to it. I got to Challenger in 172 games. This was something that even just like maybe 2 years ago, when I started to kind of get more coaching in TFT and want to play more seriously, I didn't really think that I could compete at this level. Not necessarily because I didn't think it was possible, more so that because I have played competitive games before. Like in high school, I was top 50 Warcraft 3. I've been top 200 StarCraft 2, top 200 Hearthstone. I've played competitive games all my life. But part of the reason I didn't think I could get here to qualify for Paris and getting to Challenger I've gotten to Challenger like 4 or 5 sets now, I forget how many. But specifically getting to Challenger by the snapshot point, because I just didn't play enough, I don't have enough time, play enough games. But I think also more broadly, I didn't think that I can compete at this level. As of a few years ago, when I was hard stuck master diamond at one point, partly because of the time aspect, but also because of my age. I'm turning 40 next year, and that's kind of a big kind of mental milestone for me. I've been fortunate that I'm basically retired and can kind of do this for fun. But there's kind of that doubt in the back of my mind, oh, do I still have what it takes to compete? And that's always been a huge part of my identity. And so what happened was that I did get knocked out on day 1. I got 18 points. And again, I don't want to make this into an excuses video. I definitely made mistakes. But specifically for this first game, my nerves really got to me. And that is kind of what I really want to talk about, is my nerves and the experience of what that was like. I definitely played below my practice level. Actually, before this tournament, I was practicing a ton of Void. I had a strong inkling that Void is going to be super strong going into this tournament, and I practiced it a ton. Unfortunately, I only got 1 spot for it, and that was in the last game. In that spot, Relic actually had a better spot, and I got almost eked out. If I got 3 points higher, I would have beat Eons on tiebreaker. If I got 3 points higher here, which would have been a second or higher, I could have won it. I was still in it in that last game. I took Commerce Core on 4-2, and Relic had a better get to 10 spot to hit Baron. But with Commerce Core, I hit 7 Swains, and I actually still had 30 gold left when I died. My APM just wasn't high enough to try roll down for Swain 3. That was my out for WinCon. So it wasn't I didn't have what it took. And so I think that felt good. And overall, the tournament was a great experience. But the big kind of insight aha moment, the big lesson I had was really this big question: if I don't win, do I still matter? And to and really this I think connects more broadly for anything. Like, I think for most of society this is connected with your career. If you're in school, it's connected to what your grades are. If you're playing TFT, it's connected to whether you win or lose, right? Your performance and success, society teaches us, is connected with our self-worth and how valuable we are as people. And whether we're good or bad, whether we're worthy of attention or love, is dependent on how much you perform. And for me personally, this has been a childhood conditioning. Like, I've shared this before in my previous meta mindsets, but like as a child, like when I was in elementary school, my parents, specifically my mom, is like a traditional Asian tiger mom. But like all my friends who I grew up with were like, yeah, our moms are tiger moms or parents, but yours is like the extreme version. Like that was my mom. And so whenever I got like a question wrong on a test, if I got 99 out of 100, like my mom would yell at me when I got home. Like my dad would make me stand in the corner. Like it was looking back at it, like pretty traumatizing experience of my relationship between winning slash success slash performance slash being right, and whether or not I got approval, whether I got attention, whether I felt safe as a kid, whether I felt loved. And to be fair, like that helped me be really good at getting shit done. It helped me be really good at being elite at what I did. It helped me get into a good school. It helped me start a business. Like it allowed me to have a lot of positives in my life that I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have that experience. And so I don't necessarily view it from a like, I don't know, like regret isn't the right word, but like I don't look at it like I wish it was different necessarily, because there's so many positives that came out of being forged through fire in that way for me. But there's definitely been a huge cost that's come along with it for me. And so like when I was a kid, I played like high school chess, I played high school basketball. Whenever I was put on a stage and had to be in a situation to perform, like I went to a chess tournament, in-person chess tournament, I realized that this is very different when I play like TFT today, like at home. Even a tournament at home is very different from this experience of playing at the Paris Open, where you're just out in the open and there's just crowds of people around watching you. And even at my age, and like I've like founded a company, run a startup of 40 people, and like in high school I was very awkward, very socially awkward, not that good at speaking. Through like running my business, I learned how to speak in public. I had to lead my team, had to speak with my team every week, in front of 40 people, being able to talk with confidence. And that's something that I got better at. But specifically this idea of performing under pressure, and the direct tie between winning in front of other people and performing well in front of other people in a live arena has always been something that has been very challenging for me. And so in high school, when I would go to a chess tournament, my hand would be shaking, and it would be like kind of embarrassing, because like I would be making a move, but like my hands would be shaking while I was moving a piece on the board. In basketball, I would like practice really well, and coaches would be like, oh yeah, like my name's Eric. Eric would be like, Eric's playing great in practice, we should get him in the game more. But the problem was, once I got into the game, like I would get really nervous. And so like, the same play I would make in practice that would work out well would just not in the game. Like I would make obvious mistakes, I would turn the ball over, I would make a poor decision. And I think what I realized is that it goes back to this big question: if I don't win, do I still matter? If I don't perform, do I still matter? If I don't achieve, do I still matter? And so much of that was my childhood conditioning, um, and that pressure that I had, that if I didn't win, if I didn't perform, if I didn't achieve, that I would not matter, that I would not be worthy of love, that I would not be worthy of attention, that I would be attacked, I would be criticized, I would feel unsafe in my home. Like that the magnitude of the thing I was doing, chess, sports, in this case TFT, that would be what would be the cause of all of that shakiness, all of that performance anxiety, and just cracking under pressure, because then I would be going into fight or flight mode, and my body and my mind wouldn't be performing optimally. And so that's kind of the big question that led into kind of Paris. What happened was that I lost in the first round. I was super disappointed, and the thing that happened afterward was the big emotional, like, kind of disconnect or dissonance for me with my childhood conditioning and all of the stuff that happened to me as a kid. Is that after the game, there were people that were actually watching me that, like, knew who I was, who were, like, talking to me, reaching out to me, like, throughout the whole weekend. There were just people coming up to me and being like, hey, I really appreciate the content you're putting out. I love what you're doing. Like, it's been so meaningful. And so that was just so jarring, because my whole childhood was like, oh, you mess up, you get criticized. You mess up, you're not perfect, you get yelled at, right? Like, and so this experience where I lost in round one, it really kind of broke this default belief system that I had around, like, love and attention is conditional upon my performance. Like, people were just showing me love, like, even though I had pretty, like, failed. They didn't care whether I won or lost. Like, and my wife and my kids have told me many times, like, yo, we love you no matter what happens in your tournament. And I say that to my kids when they are in a performance situation. My both my kids play basketball, my daughter plays softball, my sons play baseball, and I say that to them too. And this helps me reconnect with just the feeling and the pressure that they feel when they're put into the spotlight. But at the same time, in my mind, it's like, well, they're my family, like, they're supposed to say that, like, I kind of know that. But it's kind of it was just a very different emotional experience for me, to just have, people like you watching this, like, come up to me, and it was great. Like, I was totally blown away by the amount of just emotional impact that I've had on all of you. Like, it like almost brought me to tears, or like, I guess it did bring me to tears. Like, I didn't, I wasn't crying, like, in front of other people, but, like, when I got back to the hotel after day one, like, I was actually crying. Like, that was really meaningful to me, because it was everything that as a child I wanted from my parents that I was not able to get. Is just that the feeling that, like, I'm enough, like, I am, like, it doesn't matter if I win or lose, doesn't matter if I perform or not, doesn't matter if I get straight A's, like 100% on tests. Like, not everything that I do in my life, every action that I take has to be under so much scrutiny, such that I have to be constantly on edge about, like, whether I feel safe and loved. And so I kind of want to talk about this core idea more. If you know me and, like, my meta mindsets, I still love the philosophy and psychology behind this stuff. So I want to dive into that. And I'm hoping that my sharing this with you, one, I just want to say, just show my gratitude to all of you and appreciation to all of you that actually did go and like took the initiative and leap of faith to actually come up and talk to me. Like I know that in and of itself is like not easy, um, and shared your stories and your what you enjoyed about my content. And also to all of you that didn't meet me in person but that have actually commented and reached, like just messaged me on Discord or whatever. Like I think this experience at Paris really pounded home for me how valuable this community is, um, and how supportive all of you are. Like I can't thank all of you enough for that. So um, yeah, but I also want to connect this more broadly to how I view TFT as a metaphor for life, and just games for life, because I see so much similarity between the two. Um, Funnily enough, I was talking with Sub Zero Arc about some of stuff in his personal life, and he was talking about how in his personal life he kind of um, sometimes doesn't like taking risks. And I was like asking him like, oh, interesting, like are your top four stats like pretty high top four rate usually and like lower win rate? And he was like, yeah. I was like, okay, like cool, like that resonates with me because I think how we see the lens through which we see the world is the lens through which we see TFT, and vice versa. So I was even suggesting to him like, well, maybe you can practice doing Fast 9 more, and taking lines that you're not familiar with and practicing that, taking more risk, falling flat on your face, failing, and maybe that'll help you translate into your life to being able to take more risk, right? Like because you practice that in game, you gain that confidence, and then you can translate that to your life. And so I think I want to bring this idea up from the meta mindset because my suspicion, given that so many of you have emotionally connected with my content in a way that I don't, like I was still surprised by, just it's blown me away, like seeing people come up to me and wanting to take pictures and just sharing your own stories. I suspect that many of the things that I talk about resonate with you and that you can apply these ideas to your own life. And my hope is that I'm not just sharing my experience, I'm sharing an experience that's just common to everybody to some extent. Because I think our society, in different degrees of magnitude, teach us that your worth is tied to your performance, that whether or not you get A's in schools or not is like whether or not you're a good student or not. Whether or not you make a certain amount of money defines your worth in our capitalistic society. Whether or not you hit a certain rank in TFT, whether you win your games or not, is determine like your worth as a TFT player or even a human. Like, I think when like I've had people comment in my videos saying like they have ranked anxiety or and I think this is actually very relevant after a tournament because you have a tournament like Paris Open where there are 700 some people that attended, and one person gets to walk home saying they won it all. Everybody else, all the rest of those 700 people who did not win, all have to face this idea that your worth, if you tie your worth to your performance, and only one person out of 700 some people can truly be the winner of it all at the end. Like, we're all struggling with this to some extent, I suspect. And this is an idea that I was talking with people about, like, how do you handle losing in a tournament? And actually, Asa, who runs TFT coaching, huge fan of Asa. You should totally check out his stuff. He got like really far. He actually was in the final fight against I Feel Alive or something. I forgot his name. But from Final Lobby, like it was super close. Like it could have been Asa up there in the in the final 8. And I was talking to him right after, and he's like, yeah, like I feel disappointed, but at the same time, like I got farther than I expected, and at the end of the day, this is what any game tournament is like, right? Like, there's only one winner. Everyone else is gonna lose, and you know that. I think it's easy to say those things, after you've emotionally cooled down. Uh, and it's easy for me to say it behind a monitor, like when I'm calm and composed and like there's not really much on the line. But it's a whole nother thing, like, and that really impressed me about Asa. It's a whole nother thing to be able to, in that moment, I think it was literally like within 1 to 2 minutes after he lost the final fight. It was literally final fight, and it was like HP bar of 1 unit, like this, I believe. Where he could have been in the final lobby on day 3 within 1 or 2 minutes, and he could say those words. Like, that just blew me away. And so, yeah, like, I think there's something to be learned here for sure for myself, and that's why I pulled some of these philosophy and psychology ideas. But I'm hoping that you can also figure out a way to kind of ask this question for yourself. If I don't win, do I still matter? And I'll ask it to you. If you don't win, do you still matter? If you don't get to whatever career achievement, do you still matter? If you don't get the exact job, your dream job, do you still matter? If you don't get this grade in this class, if you don't get into that college, do you still matter? If you don't get to that TFT rank, if you don't win this TFT game, do you still matter? Right? And I think this idea is relevant to all of us. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. And I'm going to go through a bunch of quotes. These are quotes from my notes of reading a lot of books over the years. There's a period where I did a lot of executive coaching for startup founders, and as I was learning to become a parent, I read over 100 books a year, a few hundred actually at one point. Well, I was really serious. I took a speed reading class to figure out how to consume books faster, and I took a bunch of notes. So these are ideas associated with that. All right, so this is from the book How Do You Live? On self-worth. Someone with true confidence in their value as a human being should be able to live unaffected, even if their circumstances shift a bit this way or that. And so, this is connected with the idea that if you win or lose, that's the external circumstance. But if you really have self-worth, self-confidence in yourself, that you have value as a human being, then it doesn't matter what happens externally. It doesn't matter if you didn't win this game. It doesn't matter if you got, you lost in the tournament and you don't make the next round. It doesn't matter if you're not able to hit this rank yet. It doesn't matter if you're not able to get into the college you want, that job you want, that grade you want. If you truly believe in yourself and your value as a human being and have confidence in that, then you become immune to the circumstances. And that idea is what I am still trying to learn. And that, I think, is this experience has helped me a lot with it. Now, for me personally, like, there's this added layer, like, well, if I don't produce content and I don't connect with all of you, and even for me, this is like the meta layer of like, well, if I don't add value to other people's lives in some way, one of those ways is like me creating this video and hopefully helping you in some way. Like, do I matter, right? And so what I'm still trying to learn is like, yeah, I do still matter. And the judge of that is me. Like, I am the one that can choose my value as a human being and have that be the foundation that I can stand on, regardless of what happens around me, regardless of if none of you actually get value from this video, like, that can still be true. Nathaniel Branden, a psychologist, said, "When we have unconflicted self-esteem, joy is our motor, not fear. It is happiness that we wish to experience, not suffering that we wish to avoid. Our purpose is self-expression, not self-avoidance or self-justification. Our motive is not to prove our worth, but to live our possibilities." And so when I think about this quote, so much of my childhood was driven by fear. And when I think about like my high school chess tournaments or my basketball games or day one of this Paris Open tournament and my hands are shaking, I was actually shaking so much that I was like trying to drag the items and like I couldn't actually move it where I wanted to because I would be overshooting. Like I would have been the worst like Counter-Strike player like in the game. Someone would be like right in front of me, like they would be facing away not knowing I was there. I'd be trying to shoot them and I'd be missing. Like that was how bad it was in game one for me. And on top of that, I didn't have team planner because they didn't let us do team planner until after the game started. So I was also trying to put units into team planner. I could not do that. So it was actually kind of comical looking backwards. But in the moment, in that moment, a lot of it's driven by fear for me. And I've gotten a lot better at it for sure as I've gotten older and I've had repeat experiences of, you know, losing and getting better, losing and handling that, and a lot of therapy. And I'm for sure going to bring this into my next therapy session. And so much of it is fear that if I don't perform, then I don't matter, that I'm not worthy of love and attention. And yet what Brandon's saying here is that when we have self-esteem, when we have self-worth, when we have confidence in our value as a human being, then the thing that is energizing us is no longer that fear, but rather the joy. The joy of the experience, not thinking about the suffering that we want to avoid, but rather the upside of what we get to experience. And that completely shifts the mindset and the experience itself. It allows the experience to be one of joy and possibility. And for me, and actually this was one thing that was eye-opening for me. I was watching a lot of Marcel's games yesterday, and he almost made final lobby too. He was in Czech a couple times, and also I think finished second in a game that he almost won with, I believe. But one thing that I noticed with him that I mentioned to him is that even when the pressure was at its highest, he was calm, collected, composed. He was playing from a place of this joy, of self-expression, of the possibilities. And that really struck me because it's in sharp contrast to how much my hands were shaking on day one. And really playing the energy and the motive, playing from a place of joy rather than anxiety or fear. Brandon continues to say, persons of high self-esteem are not driven to make themselves superior to others. They do not seek to prove their value by measuring themselves against a comparative standard. Their joy is in being who they are, not in being better than someone else. And one of the challenges of playing in a tournament like this is that it's like a pyramid. When you are driven by status, by your worth attached to an idea of who's at the top of the pyramid, like the whole concept of status is one in which if everyone had high status, then everyone would have the same amount of status, in which case nobody would have status, right? Because everyone's flat in comparison with each other. Our entire capitalistic society is built on the idea of hierarchy and status, where only the few can have it at the top. And that is true in a TFT tournament, right? Uh, and I'm not saying that we should not have tournaments that are structured like this. The fault is not in the pyramid itself. The fault is when your or my motivation is overly attached to comparing who I am and trying to be better than someone else. Because when that becomes the primary goal, it makes it hard to act out of a place of joy and confidence and being unaffected by the external circumstance. Because when we are constantly trying to compare ourselves with others to try to attain status, wealth, be number one in TFT, if our entire self-worth is attached to that idea, then we're motivated by anxiety. We start to view other people as threats to our own self-worth, because if someone else is higher than me, then they are a threat to me. Instead, Brandon's arguing that if we can find joy in who we are, not necessarily in being better than someone else, but being joyful in just where we are, accepting ourselves as we are, then that comes from a different place of how we act and bring ourselves into the world. And that's not to say that we shouldn't act to improve or learn, because that's a big part of what I believe in, but rather I think it's separating what we do with who we are. And who we are, also separating that from what other people's perspective of us are. Separating our self-perception of who we are from societal status norms. Schopenhauer said, "True appreciation of your own value will make you indifferent to insult." And so this is similar to this first quote from the book, How Do You Live? This idea that if you are truly self-confident in your value, your abilities, who you are, not necessarily even abilities, it's because that's even attached to, what you do, but just who you are, then what happens externally won't bother you as much. So like losing in a tournament, there are 700 some people that attended the Paris Open, and only one player, Juanmi, could come out of it saying they were the champion. And every other one of those 700 players had to deal with the disappointment of losing at some point. And if we lack appreciation of our own value, if we lack self-esteem, we lack confidence in ourselves, then we take that loss very hard. And by the way, my recording kind of crashed earlier, since I'm in a hotel and this power cable is really weird. Like sometimes it's not on, and I'm regularly checking the power. But I forget if I already told this story in the first part of the video, so I'm just gonna tell it again if I didn't. One thing that really struck me from the Open experience is after Asa. So Asa also got to second to last round before the final 8. Asa was in the same lobby as Marcel, Milk, and he, in the last round of that, or in the last fight of that round, it was him and another player who were in check. It was the last fight. They were both on 1 life. And Asa ended up losing the fight. Like, it was literally by like a health bar, like this much. The diff between getting knocked out and going to the final day, final lobby, being featured in front of all the players out there, which would have been a huge boost to his business, TFT Coaching and TFT Coaching Plus, which I hugely recommend to all of you out there, by the way. It's like wild to me because Asa hasn't even been practicing playing that many games this set because he's been doing so much coaching. And for him to come out and perform the way he did is just like, that's mind blowing to me. But what struck me the most after he lost, this was like maybe a minute after he lost, I was talking to him and he was saying that, of course he was saying like, yeah, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, like I've exceeded my expectations and, like at the end of the day, it's a tournament and I've been to many tournaments before and there can only be one winner and everyone else is going to walk home disappointed. And I think it's one thing to be able to say those words from the comfort of your own home. Like for me to say it in front of, this screen right now, when there's not really much on the line. I think it's a whole different story to be able to say that in the moment with all of your emotions boiling internally, when there is a massive crowd watching, to have everyone there see what happened, to have lost in front of everybody in our society and culture that is so driven by the winners versus the losers. And for him to say those words, like that bumped up my respect for Asa like tenfold. Yeah. And I mean, Asa has also had a lot of like competitive experience. He's gone to a lot of tournaments across a lot of different games. But yeah, I mean, he is that what he was saying, that was the embodiment of Schopenhauer's quote here, that when you can be appreciative of your own value, be confident in yourself, have esteem for yourself, then the external world and what happens in it bothers you less. Such that if you lose in a tournament game, you can still have that not bother you so much. If you lose in your TFT game, if you don't hit that rank that you really want to hit, if you don't get that job that you really want to get into that school that you want to get into, don't get that perfect grade, whatever it is, when you can have self-confidence and not feel ashamed in yourself and feel self-worth, then the external world does not bother you as much. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't receive feedback from the world. And I think that's what's so challenging about the game of TFT. It's like finding that perfect straddle balance between having something hurt or making a mistake and failing, and yet still having the motivation and energy to learn from it, to improve and get better, and not having that experience be driven by fear, or that you have to prove your value by comparing yourself to someone else, but rather because you're doing it out of self-expression, a way to live your possibilities, to live out of joy. That, I think, is what I'm still learning how to do. I think I've gotten better at it as I've gotten older. But that's where I really want to be coming from. Oliver Sacks, a psychologist, in his book Gratitude, and this book was written 6 months before he passed, when he was diagnosed. Something like that. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he said this: "And now, weak, short of breath, my once firm muscles melted away by cancer, I find my thoughts, increasingly, not on the supernatural or spiritual, but on what is meant by living a good and worthwhile life, achieving a sense of peace within oneself." And this idea is really striking to me right now, because I am turning 40 next year. I don't feel like I'm that. I don't feel like I'm 40, but um, and yeah, I'm older than Robin. I'm older than Asa. I'm older than Marcel. Um, but I think this idea is relevant for me as I'm approaching 40 next year, and I've been thinking about it a lot more. And this idea of what is a good and worthwhile life? Well, Sachs on his deathbed said, achieving a sense of peace within yourself. I think this is really connected with all of these ideas of worth beyond performance, of self-worth, of how to disconnect whether or not you can get peace within yourself from the external world of achievement and status and performance. And how we can feel a sense of peace even when we get knocked out of a tournament, even when we lose a game, even when we get fucked on a roll down, someone contests us, whatever it is, finding that peace. And when we can believe in our own self-worth that's disconnected from that performance, I believe that is how to achieve that sense of peace within ourselves. All right, shame. Nietzsche, the philosopher, said, "What is the seal of liberation or of freedom? No longer being ashamed in front of oneself." And so I think this is basically the corollary to the idea of self-worth that we've been talking about. That when you achieve a sense of self-worth, when you are able to feel a sense of peace within yourself, when you're no longer ashamed in front of yourself, when I lost in the tournament and wasn't able to hit my Swain 3 on my roll down, when I can come out of that game and not feel ashamed and not feel like I'm an utter failure, not feel like I don't matter because I lost, if I can achieve that sense of peace and and shift away from that sense of shame, that is when I can truly be free. That is when I can truly unlock a sense of joy and a whole nother layer of meaning and purpose in how I live my life and how I experience the world around me. And I suspect that would also lead to better performance. Because it is when, at least from my experience, when I am playing from a place of fear and shame in front of myself that if I lose, I am not good enough, that my worth is tied to my performance, that is coming from a place of fear and anxiety that puts me in a prison, that I am a slave to what happens external to myself, and that is oftentimes outside of my control. What is fully within my control, and this is the part that I am optimistic about, what is in my control is the internal world. I can learn how to examine my own mind and how I think and how I feel, or rather, and this dives more into psychology. A lot of the research I've dived into is that oftentimes how we feel, there's a cyclical process between how we feel and what our thoughts are, our belief structures. And so if I can really examine my belief structures, go through therapy as a way to refactor them, talk about it is a way to also do that, and really re-examine it. It's basically like VOD reviewing my own mind, right? Like to use a TFT metaphor. This is something I believe I have control over. And that is the path towards my own freedom to be able to live a good life. And this whole experience has been a way for me to move in that direction, which I'm super grateful for, and super grateful for all of you for. Like, I cannot thank all of you enough for like helping me just like come to this realization. Pride. Karen Horney said, and she's a psychologist, said, pride and self-hate belong inseparably together. They are two expressions of one process. So this idea of pride is attached to like kind of, I almost can use it synonymously with performance, with status, with, in the case of the tournament, whether you win or not. And self-hate is attached to like shame, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence. And what Karen's saying here is that when we excessively, like, that we cannot disconnect the two, that when we excessively attach ourselves to this pyramid and being up here, and attach our identity and our worth to the pride of being better than someone else, the pride of winning, Karen says that self-hate, shame, lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence is the other side of the coin to pride, that you cannot have one without the other. And so I think that is a very interesting insight, because so much of our society is built on pride, especially American value system. Like, I think it's also interesting, I'm like thinking about that a little bit more too, because we're in Paris, and another really cool thing about the Paris Open, or just these opens in general, is that there's so many people from around the world, from different cultures and belief structures and value systems, that come together and play a shared game. I mean, that alone is fascinating. But I do think American culture specifically amplifies this value of pride around the self-made man, the American dream, going from rags to riches. Our capitalistic society has replaced religion, like Christianity, with, so it's no longer necessarily a quote God, like a spiritual God, but rather a capitalistic God of like who makes the most money, as a way of pride. So yeah, I think that's a very interesting insight. And then on the topic of achievement, Frank Herbert in the Dune series said, "Do not be trapped by the need to achieve anything. This way, you achieve everything." And so I think this is also attached to pride. Oftentimes, at least for me, when I achieve something big, I get proud. I'm proud that I achieved that thing. And now that I think about it, I might need to change some of my language with how I speak to my kids, because I do say I'm proud of them. But I don't know. I also don't know how much of this stuff they've internalized. Like the words we use are so relevant to how we interpret the world. But when we don't feel the need to achieve anything, we then are able to not have this sense of self-hatred, lack of self-worth. And that is what brings us peace. And that's what Herbert's saying, is that we achieve everything. We at the end of the day, what do you actually really want when you say you want achievement? When you say you want to be number one at something, when you say you want to do X, Y, or Z, right? Like, I think what most people think they want when they talk about their dreams and what they want to accomplish I think we oftentimes have a feeling that like that's going to make our lives amazing. That's going to be fill the void in my heart. That's the thing that's going to make me feel like I will have self-worth, that I will be worthy of love. And what Herbert is saying, and what a lot of these other philosophers and writers are saying, is that it is that striving and that urge and urgency to need to achieve that is actually getting in the way of us getting what we want. It's the anxiety and fear of me in day one of the open over attaching to the idea of winning and getting to the next day that got in the way of my performance to actually do what I wanted to do. And it's such a contradiction and paradox. Nathaniel Brandon said, "If my aim is to prove I am enough, the project goes on to infinity. Because the battle was already lost on the day I conceded the issue was debatable." So similar idea, that the moment I am striving to be enough, the battle's already lost. Because the basic assumption when I say that my aim is to prove I'm enough, the basic assumption is that I am not enough, that I lack self-worth, that I have shame. And the moment that we start with that assumption, the battle is already lost. And I think the idea here is that the battle is won when we just already accept that I am enough as I am. There is nothing I must prove to the world. That I am the value and judge of my own self. Which is hard to do because as a child, we grow up in a world where you are a small person in a big person's world, and we are not able to stand on our own 2 feet as kids. We are not able to support ourselves. And so we constantly rely on other people for our own safety and feeling of belonging. And when we are interacting in a social environment like that, we're constantly trying to prove that we're enough. That's how we fit in. And yet we have to, if we want to actually get to the point where we can feel like we're enough, we have to like kind of really examine this whole psychological structure. And really the problem began the moment that we even set that as our goal. Thomas Merton, in his book No Man is an Island, said, "It is useless to try to make peace with ourselves by being pleased with everything we have done. In order to settle down in the quiet of our own being, we must learn to be detached from the results of our own activity." So he's saying that all of our actions, our achievements, the things that we do are useless to get that sense of peace within ourselves. That when we can detach from the results of our activity, when we can detach, like Asa, I mean, I think he wasn't perfect at it. Like he was clearly disappointed, but like not as disappointed as I was, or I think how many other competitors were, right? Like when we can detach from losing, getting knocked out of a tournament, that is like the sign of a person that is confident in themselves or has done the work to make peace with themselves. The peace comes from detachment from the results, not from the results themselves. And that is the key insight. Meister Eckhart said, "We should not think that holiness is based on what we do, but rather on what we are. For it is not our works which sanctify us, but we who sanctify our works." The basic idea here is that it should be, we are the judge of the things that we are doing, not the other way around. It is not whether or not I get first in a tournament that determines my value. It is I am the person that is valuing that to be true. And when we can realize that, then we can apply that to our own selves. That I can choose to value myself, regardless of what happens, to be able to detach from the results, right? That's the basic idea. So I hope that this meta mindset has been helpful for you. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I know that all the people that I met along the way, you guys giving me the feedback, talking to me, coming up to me at the Paris Open, all of you at home just supporting me, all of you that have commented in my videos. This idea of worth beyond performance is truly like a huge learning for me, and I will remember this experience for a long time to come. I just want to say I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for all of you. To all of you that I met in person, as well as if you're at home watching this, thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of shout out the people I met, the TFT dojo, the 13 of us that were there. We did an alpha test product together as a warm-up prior to tournament. That was super fun, and just super excited to see where the TFT dojo goes. If you want to apply, take a look at tftdojo.com. You can also check out the description. Thanks to Kai and the Project Mentor group, I got to have lunch with those guys. That was super fun. Got dinner with Asa and the TFT coaching group. I also got to meet a bunch of top players who surprisingly, like many of them were coming up to me saying that they really liked my content. So that was also really amazing. Talked to Weijin, Malala, 11 Lumen, Upset Max, a bunch of folks. And then before I got there, I asked my son, who's 9 and also plays TFT, who he wanted me to say hi to and maybe take a picture with. He said Robin Songs and Sub-Zero Arc. So here is me with Robin and me with Sub-Zero Arc. Everyone was just super kind, friendly, welcoming. And then me with Pengu. And to all the people I didn't mention, I apologize in advance. Got to meet a lot of you. Yeah, just overall super fun, super thankful to have gotten the opportunity to hang out, to chat, to get to know you. And yeah, thanks for helping me learn. When I say, someone actually asked me to do my spiel, when I say I'm learning TFT and I'm sharing my learnings with you so that you can learn and I can learn better as well, I truly mean it. Like, I feel like in this instance, the learning I'm receiving from this is huge. And I cannot thank all of you enough for helping me learn this big lesson about myself. And I hope in some small way that this message, this meta mindset, I apologize for the choppiness of this video. My laptop is kind of meh here, but yeah, just thank you so much for helping me learn this lesson. I hope it helps you in some way. Thanks for watching. Happy holidays if I don't actually produce any videos before the end of the year. I might not. Happy holidays either way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.